And we are live. And hi, welcome everybody to SUSE QE Tools workshop in this July of 2026. So Rob wanted to lead us through the story of full traceability and give a bit of an outlook about reproducibility after we successfully finished the according epics and sagas in the past months. Rob.
Right, yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm Rob, hi. I've led these two epics, and yeah, I will give a broad summary. I personally did not do a whole lot of the implementation, but I'm the epic owner for the two epics. And yes, so this is the first epic. Maybe I can just also share them just for anyone who wants to have a look themselves. These are the two epics that we're going to have a look at. We will start with the full traceability one. So I found this user story that was also relevant. So the question that we're asking is, what are we actually testing? And one user story that we have in this case is, as a customer or QA engineer personnel, I want to see what tests were executed and when, and with what results against the maintenance update, service pack, or a given software release. So yeah, we created these epics and yeah, started thinking about first what do we need in terms of variables to be able to trace a test. So yeah, maybe we can just pick any test. Yeah, let's just pick any one, and I'm sure you're familiar with this page, job settings page.
Can you zoom in a little bit when we show those examples? I mean, you don't, yeah, good.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure most of you are familiar with this page. A lot of the variables we need are visible on this page, but in order to fully trace a test, you will need access to the vars.json file still. I would say we can go over some of the variables which are important. Of course, you have the test logic for that. I think the most important is the test URL, so the test git URL, where's T, for example, here the test git URL, and for traceability, very important, we have this test git hash. This one you won't find in the settings tab that we had to look at earlier. So this will give you the exact hash at the time of the test. And similar, the same you will also need for the needles to pinpoint the exact state of the needles repository.
Rob, just a technical note. I will blur the screen regarding the sensitive data which we have in there, which is the rec codes. But I would appreciate if you're not showing any more settings table of internal instances. I mean, in principle, we did that mostly for the requirements for our SUSE internal instance, but also the same concept could be shown on O3. You can show examples, but not the settings maybe.
Yeah, I will keep it close. So then I will just list them, or maybe we can, I guess most of them are listed in the documentation. I guess QEMBot will assign the hash that I just showed. So I'm not sure if I will find it immediately. But yeah, so important for the test logic is the needles repo and the test repo, and you have hashes for that to pinpoint the exact versions. You also need, for example, the YAML schedule. Then you also, of course, you want to know the system under test that is being tested. So you have the ISO variable. The maintenance test repository would be also a variable. Then you have Arch machine backend, for example. Worker class is very important. This is then already like in terms of hardware and virtualization. Virtualization would be like QEMU, CPU, QEMU RAM. Yeah, all these variables would be important to fully trace and eventually potentially reproduce a test. So yeah, so maybe let's talk about some roadblocks that we faced while trying to achieve full traceability. So we started out by, yeah, I already opened the ticket, by increasing the storage to yeah, a year in order to be able to have the variables necessary to trace a test. And this caused issues with storage, since yeah, we have multiple hundreds of thousands of tests, and if you change the amount of data that you, or the retention period of data, that can have a huge impact. So we ran into issues with storage, which led us to do several things. We did a okay, now
Yeah, I think
DNS.
if you click it again from the pull request, then
No, I think something's wrong. I will
reload the pull request first.
Ah, yes. Right. So here you can see in brackets disk space limited. So you get a visual indicator if we're running out of disk space. And at the same time, workers will stop assigning jobs until we have disk space again. Then we have a similar pull request, more or less doing the same, but independently. And yeah, I think this pull request also, yeah, it has like a 5% threshold. So if we have 5% left space left, it will start assigning new jobs. And this threshold is a lot smaller than our cleanup threshold. So usually we shouldn't hit the threshold. The cleanup should hit earlier. But in case it doesn't work for some reason, it will stop assigning jobs.
The reason why it might not work is because you can configure OpenK instances, and we have that internally, that we I mean, we have no other means, right? When we accept jobs and they're running, they are producing results. And even if we have configured certain retention periods to say, like, we need to store those data for at least a year, and new jobs come in, eventually we will exceed the margin that the automatic cleanup can use to clean up old results. So we would run into the situation where we say, like, okay, we need to keep the data, but new tests are producing more data than we can store. So stop accepting any new jobs until the situation is resolved by, either waiting long enough until data expires, or until an admin will tweak those settings and say, like, okay, what do we need to do? The important part is that by doing that, we prioritize the consistency of the already existing test results over potentially corrupting the overall picture by scheduling by running more tests, because the tests are still scheduled. They're just like indefinitely delayed until that situation is remedied.
Right. Yes. So and we also did one more thing. We originally just checked the result, which is a separate mount. We only checked this one part, and now we're checking all relevant parts in all mounts, since it might cause inconsistencies if we if we don't do that. So this was also one point regarding this problem that we had. Then another issue. So we the way maintenance incident IDs were assigned in the job settings was rather inefficient. So it was I will not, I guess, not show it now, but there was several variables with specific naming, and the IDs were split up throughout these variables. So for performance reasons and to be able to query the all tests for a specific incident easily, we created this array that includes all maintenance IDs for a specific job in one array that makes it a lot easier to, as I said, look for maintenance incident and look for all jobs related to a maintenance incident. And also it increases the performance of the web UI for certain queries a lot and allows to display a lot more elements at once and faster.
Can you demonstrate that?
I think I can. So I guess we don't need to go into variables for that.
I have one query which one can use from the tests page.
From the old test?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So follow my link, which is like, from that page, one can use those variable search. So what we do is we search all jobs for job settings. And as you can saw, the results show up like near immediate. So that was pretty quick when considering that we have millions of test results. And this submission was, for example, one that was tested 4 months ago. And then you find all the results. And the same is also possible then, I think, using a test overview page, or just click the build link in the left in the first column, and then you will see the usual test results. The 2782. So this is like the standard test overview page of current results. And those are all results from like many months ago, and we still have all those all this data. And if we go back even further in time, okay, but yeah, sorry, I didn't want to spoil the surprise. So, Rob, what else would you like to go over?
Yeah, I will. I'm not sure if I will cover what you just want to cover, but I will also look at all the tests and talk about it.
Yep.
But yeah. So let me think where I stopped. So we were here. Yeah. So implementation, and also we did the database indexing because this was not in the database earlier, so that's what made it faster. Right. I lost track a little bit. Sorry. Right. Then one more thing is, so we have the documentation on traceability and reproducibility as well. I should probably put this into the chat. So yeah, these hash variables that I mentioned earlier, if you want to, for example, reproduce a test. So if you want to now talk about reproducing a little bit, these hash variables you would have to figure out yourself and then add them as variables in a call when creating a new job. And since this is rather time consuming, Marius also implemented a reproduce flag, which you can use in the CLI. It's also documented in the documentation. Why is it not documented here? It is documented, definitely. Just surprised why it's not in this section.
That's for OpenK clone job, right? Yeah, there it is.
Right. And so if you call this reproduce flag, it will and you of course point at an older historic job, it will automatically gather or fetch the necessary hash variables and assign the new job with those old historic hash references. so you don't have to manually assign those variables yourself. You should keep in mind, though, if you use this reproduce variable, it's this reproduce flag, it will not assign the worker class, for example, and this will only take care of these hashes that I've mentioned earlier, but this is also mentioned here in the documentation. So yeah, that was also a challenge to make this usable, because having to do this manually was is very time consuming, and also this makes it easier to because if you on the web UI, if you click the restart button, it will always take the latest state of the needles repository and the test repository or the test code. So yeah, this is an easy way to trigger a historic job. And the final challenge we had is, I guess, we want to, of course, if one wants to call this reproduce flag and certain historic assets or the vars.json file that I mentioned earlier is missing, we of course don't want to trigger jobs which will fail anyway, because that will waste space unnecessarily. And as I mentioned, we had issues with space anyway. So to fix that, Marius also included a check that checks if the necessary variables are available, at least on OpenQA side. So it does not check if the, let's say, the maintenance repo is still available, but it will check if the vars.json is available, if the installation medium like the ISO is available. And if it's not, it will fail, it will tell the reason, and it will not schedule the job. Right. So yeah, I guess those were the challenges that I noted down. Right. So I guess mostly that's already it. There is one thing I forgot to mention earlier when talking about the variables. So we have what's also important for traceability, and what we also support with OpenQA, but it's not enabled in production yet, is logging the packages which are installed on the worker and which are installed on the system under tests during time of execution. For the worker packages, you would enable in the workers.ini file the packages underscore cmd variable, and so it's a worker specific setting, and that would cause that list to be uploaded automatically into the assets. And and for the system under test, you would have to actually do it in the test code and make sure it's only 3 lines. It's also documented in, it's actually right here, I think. Is it this section? Yeah, here. You see where, is it big enough? Can you read the text? I hope so.
Yeah.
So basically it just pipes the packages into a text file, adds it to the assets, and yeah, this has to be done in the test code. And if you do this, and also this also counts for the workers packages, if you do that in the investigation tab, you can then see the differences from the currently failing job to the last good, for example, what changed in terms of packages in the system under test and on the worker. But as mentioned, this is currently not yet, it's supported and implemented. It's not activated in production yet. We have tickets to activate it in the backlog. I think that's mostly it now. I think, I guess I already showed you the search URL with Ollie's URL. So yeah, what Ollie pasted in the chat, you can basically search for job settings in the URL. So that's, can I copy it? Here. So what we did earlier here, you see OS test issues equals, and then you have the maintenance incident ID. You could change it to another ID or another job setting. So yeah, maybe we can I'm not sure if I don't want to show anything I shouldn't show. Should we try to? Yeah.
You can show the job results, but not the settings.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
what
guess
you
we
could
can.
do
So
is just pick up any job and then go back in the history and see how far back we can go.
sure, let's do that. Maybe we can also find an old job and trigger it to see that it will not trigger because the assets are missing. So if we want to do that, I guess we want one without a lot of parent jobs, maybe. Yeah, maybe this one. I guess this one does.
Yeah, good example. Right, so this was just 10 hours ago, should be no problem to reproduce that, but also nothing recently, nothing really changed about how we treat those jobs in the past months, right?
Right. Anton, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, I would like to ask about this package list on a worker. It's good to know, but I see that the practical use case is almost not usable because, okay, I know, let's say I have a job which was run half a year ago, and I know that at this time a worker has glibc version X. But currently okay, first of all, even if the version is available, this means that in OpenCase SUSE DE, I need to set up, I need to get administrative access to a worker and install downgrade the version of the packages which are listed to get to this state. Or start my worker and connect it to OpenCase SUSE DE. Both are kind of not very real scenario. And another problem is that with high probability, some certain packages would be already even not available anywhere. So just knowing that this package was there in practice doesn't give me real ways to solve this problem.
Yeah, I guess in terms of bare metal, it can be a challenge or maybe also impossible to reproduce the exact environment. I guess it also there's also, of course, the possibility of hardware drift. Like there is always the possibility that a test is not reproducible in the same form because maybe the hardware is not available at all anymore and you cannot replicate it exactly. But still, so for reproducibility, I agree, it's not, we don't have any mechanic that automatically reproduces the worker environment or something like that. But
I would say going back 1 year, actually we have everything available. If that would be needed, and maybe we see that in a current job we would have a more recent kernel and glibc and chemo version, we could in theory go back. I mean, first there's the informational purpose, right? First to find out, like, does it actually matter? Maybe it's helpful to see that list and compare it against the current states. Like, how likely is it even that this has an impact? And then if you want to have an environment which really closely replicates that, going back some months or in a year is for sure technically feasible and possible. Should you do it? I don't think that realistically we would have any case. Maybe every couple of years once that one really wants to invest the effort, right? I don't see that we need to do it, but it's feasible from the perspective of what just information and data that is provided.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, then I will continue. We can also open it up for more questions in a couple of minutes. Or we can also start with the questions now. I guess I would have just shown for this maybe in 1 minute, Heiko. So for this recent job, we still have all assets. Now, if we go back, we can see we do have results for a very long time. If I go, for example, a year back, you will see we don't have most of the assets anymore. We don't only have the installation medium, no vast.json. So this one we could not reproduce just by using the command that I mentioned earlier. But maybe I go, say, 9 months ago, and check here. Yeah. So here we have exactly the two that we would need. This is the installation medium and the vast.json. It might, of course, still fail if we try to reproduce it because the incident repo is not available anymore or something external that's not OpenQA handled. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to show as well.
And what is also visible there is that we, can you go back to this 1 year old?
Yes. Oops.
Okay, so we even have examples of like 4 years ago. And yeah, that's cool. So this is an important job, desktop main menus. Could you go there? So let's check if we have
the very old one?
Yeah. Right. You can see on the top right, this is unfortunately now hidden behind the little stars, but there's this gray icon showing that this is an archive job. So we actually keep it on a separate storage device, which is slower, and we compress the data, but we still keep it. And what you also see here is that even if that runs out or if certain periods expire, then we can still keep the job, but only keep it in the database. That's why we don't have any screenshots here anymore. But at least we have the result about which modules passed and also which module failed. So this little result box, which is showing passed, and I guess the desktop main menu that one is still recorded as failed, which is also still there.
Right, exactly.
So Heiko had a question.
Heiko, sorry.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is a follow-up to the question that Anton just had. So when using clone job with the reproducible flag, does it make sense from your perspective, or do you plan to implement support for selecting the very same worker class that was used, so that we can have the job specifics and the worker class in let's say extracted and reused?
I also thought about this. I'm not sure if we actually have a ticket already, but I agree that it would probably be the expected behavior for a reproduce flag.
Yeah.
So
to do that, one could just copy paste the value of worker class from the vast.json and put it into the OpenK clone job. We can maybe make it a bit more convenient by parameterizing the reproduce flag. Maybe that's a good idea. I will note that down. It might be a bit too restrictive because as Rob mentioned, that maybe we don't have that exact machine anymore and we only have another machine which is in the same class. Again, in the example that we had in before, if you're just going back some months or years, but I mean, usually we still have the very same machine, so we could run on the very same worker class combination if you want, yeah.
Yeah, I would see this more like an option, as you say, because I mean, it might not matter, but if we figure out it matters to this specific job, then we can use the flag in the second run, so to say, or second try.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely makes sense to consider.
The other question I had was on this flag or variable OS test issues. So is that the same variable both for SLE 16 and SLE 15 incidents, or do we have different variables?
I think you're referring to
That's the same.
The one that Oliver copied or shared in the solid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
This lookup parameter.
Right. So if I'm not mistaken, we should we be able to also
OS test issues, yeah, exactly.
like this. Why is this not working? Shouldn't this work, Ollie?
I don't know if you need to have a placeholder or something. The help text from OpenGate should maybe would help us.
You're referring to the documentation or which help text? I would assume the maintenance ID should be listed in the test issues array, right? So yeah, I don't want to open the variables again to check, but yeah.
Yeah, but if you say you're not using a different variable for SLE16
It's
for
the same, yeah.
yeah, then
The same, yeah.
then it's good. By any chance, do you make a distinction between these issue testings and product increment testings? So that we can distinct between these tests being executed on issues versus on product increments?
I mean, product increments don't include that test issues reference, because at this point the issues per se are resolved.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, but for tracing test execution in increments. And anything that could help identify that this test case was executed in an increment sometime.
well, we can look up any kind of test, like show me the latest QM QM GNOME job in product increments. I mean, that is possible. So it wouldn't use that same filter. Can you maybe specify a bit more what would be the use case? Like what would be the start of
You
an
let's say
investigation?
we have a test and it's only scheduled, let's say, in product increments.
Mm-hmm.
Or I want to see proof that it was only executed in product increments and not in test issues.
Right.
So how would I be able to prove that or make this distinction?
By looking into the test results of increments at that point in time, and then looking for the certain test suite, which can be done from the test overview page. Rob, could you click to the job group summary on top, in the header, the menu, job group selection.
Let me unmute myself.
Pull down menu on top, just very top.
Right. Good.
Job groups, and then maintenance SLE16.
Mm-hmm.
And then any product increment. Did you break this? Right. Okay. To the right, and then just select containers increment. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No.
At this point, select the latest build, and then what we are going to do is we are going to generalize it from here. So in the filter, unfold this filter bar. We can include, let's see, test. So in test, write, for example, mau-web server, mau-web server. Click apply, and I guess the query would be empty. And then in the URL, so this needs to be done in the URL, that we delete the group ID. And there we see that this scenario is tested as part of product increments. This is for the latest build. And yeah, we can also go back in time and say whatever is the latest build at that time. and any other combination. Heiko, does this go in a direction?
Yeah, halfway, I would say. So what would tell me that my web server is not executed in incidents?
Yeah.
Because I specify the build ID here, which is then pinning it to a specific product increment.
Right. Leave out. Okay, Rob, can you leave out the build ID in the URL? What this would just do is, for the combination of query parameters, look up the last matching combination, which I guess would still resolve to the same. Yeah, so it's computing. This is the last execution of that is in that product increment.
But the test result overview still references the build number.
Yeah, exactly. But it's computed. We didn't specify that. So this is like
Okay.
the latest result, right?
Yeah. So
And what we can then do is there's this link in the summary box. It says showing latest jobs overview fixed to the current time, which is a link. So this is like a permanent link replicating exactly the results at this time. And that can also be changed to a different, so that's encoded in the URL. So, we can share those URLs and it points exactly to the test results at that time. Yeah.
I see.
And that can be changed to say, like, how did it look like at this and this point in time, like, 10 days ago, which was a previous increment or something. And then if you want to find out, like, how does the situation look like for incident test for this test suite, I think it's best to start from the specific query, like go back to this job group pull-down menu, select the most recent results, and then tweak it from there. A completely different angle to try to answer that question would likely be the test catalog, which I assume Sebastian Klatt can tell you much more about. Which we maybe don't need to answer right now, but for later.
Yep, but thank you.
Oh, I'm muted. Yeah. Thank you also, Olli, for helping out. Yeah, so I guess that already is mostly it from my side. I guess we don't need to trigger an old job just to show that it won't work. But yeah, so the reproducibility epic was basically resolved with the conclusion that for reasons stated, as stated already, and also because external repos are not always available. We don't have long-term full reproducibility at the moment, but we support it in theory, and we also support it in practice for a certain amount of time, as long as it's feasible within our infrastructure. But I think I went over all points that I had in my mind. So yeah, if there's any other questions, now would be the time. And yeah, I already shared the documentation in the chat, so that also covers a lot of what I went over during the meeting.
So, Rob, you already mentioned that there are certain limitations. Which one do you see as the most important or most restricting that maybe we should do, or what you think we could do, depending on, like, is it worth it? Because everything comes with a cost and maybe other negative impacts due to that.
Yeah, it's not easy to say. So for external repositories, it's hard for us to really do something. They would just have to exist for the test to be reproducible. On our side, we want to, of course, still make sure that we don't run into storage problems. So I forgot the term. For example, if we want to store a lot of ISO images, we want to do it so it doesn't take up as much space as just adding 2 ISO images sizes would add up to, but rather, I forgot the term, to have cross files that are, Olli, do you have the term in mind?
You mean
files,
for efficient usage?
yeah, so for storing, for example, if you have very many similar ISO images, you don't store the entire ISO image on disk each time, but for sections of the ISO which are identical.
Yeah, use deduplication.
Deduplication, thank you.
Which can happen when being smart with the algorithms, or we can rely on some magic happening in the file system itself on the block and inode level. Yeah, Sebastian?
Yeah, actually on this, specifically on storing any ISO, anything like this, I keep monitoring the kernel bugs, right? With the idea of actually improving the kernel bug reporting, right? And recently, 2 days ago, I had a chat with Anthony from the file system kernel team. And we were talking about his feedback in one of the bugs on how insufficient is certain bug report, right? And I told him that I'm actually asking specifically for in the spirit of exactly like improving those kernel bug reports. And then he brought actually a very interesting point, right? So he mentioned that it would be really awesome that overall he feels like QE is improving a lot when it comes to bug reporting, but at the same time, it would be really awesome to exactly be able to reproduce issues way easier, right? And I told him that, of course, this is something what we discuss internally a lot and what we work on a lot. And he suggested that maybe instead of caching like whole images and stuff like this, we could be actually caching some related bin and debug RPMs, which actually are affecting the given test case, right? I know this is not trivial, but I wonder if this is something what was even on our mind.
I mean, it was on my mind, but then I kind of disregarded it because I couldn't think of an idea how you can identify the relevant assets.
Yeah, that's exactly was my thinking. I didn't tell him that, but exactly my thinking was, yeah, how can we actually make sure which parts are the crucial ones in the given fading scenario, right?
In hindsight, you're always smarter, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you already did the initial investigation and identified like, okay, it's something about this and this, then maybe we can just store this and that package.
So maybe something like a snapshot of such RPM sources, and then being able to actually, after this initial investigation, being able to actually archive them or store them somehow, maybe something of that sort, right?
But we shouldn't try to guess what users need. We should just provide for testers, for developers, easy way how they can do it. So some kind of variable where they think, okay, please also snapshot together with results, store this and that packages, and that's it. So and it shouldn't be done on test level; it should be done on backend level.
Yeah. So if we would know that a SUT doesn't have any network contact, then it becomes easy because then we would know like those are the assets that we need to care about, right? Content can only come from an ISO file and a QCAR file, which here in combination is like, okay, nearly 4 GB. I mean, that's a starting point. Of course, that's too much to be stored for long for every single job. So this is why you need to be a bit more selective in what we can save per
Wait a
case.
second, Oli. Anton, can you mute yourself, please?
Ah, sorry, yes.
But by the way, I wanted to show, if you haven't seen that, the download feature. So one can download the individual sections. So, you know, you can click download zip and then this opens a pop-up in my browser. Here, that would be 1 megabyte for this one test case, including all those files, all the logs together. They are 2.1 megabytes. So maybe that is making it convenient to store elsewhere, but I also don't suggest to put all of that information in Bugzilla because, you know, people also need to find the storage there. The assets, that one would take a bit longer, and there is a download all. If I click that, then you can see that, I mean, it will conclude, but it will take a bit longer to create this 4 GB archive. Yeah. Will it be complete to completely reproduce that? No, because of how this test references external repositories, which is something that, for example, I can point you to this ticket, ensure access to SLE maintenance updates after release to ensure reproducibility. I opened that ticket already a long time ago, which I see out of scope. For now, I see it out of scope for us within QA Infra or QA Dev, because it needs to have a general decision. Basically, the possibilities that I would see that we have are either ensure that the repositories can stay around on the internal mirror for much longer, also after release, or copy all those repositories to OpenGay, because OpenGay supports all that. But of course, that also means like we need to change the tests and find the storage to do that. Or not immediately store those repositories, but make sure that whatever was part of those repositories is properly hashed and could be found. Like in the case of when all tests sufficiently pass and we release a maintenance update, we know that the according maintenance update is in the product. So the data is there. It's just not there in this original development repository, but just in the product. So we would need to, you know, if anyone wants to reproduce the tests of that current stage, would mean like, okay, take the SLE from that version and apply those maintenance update, like super in patch version exactly, without needing any external repositories or like any SUSE internal repositories, because the data is available over the CDN, is available to customers, right? In the meantime, the download preparation has finished completely. So I see a pop-up now, and that is allowing me to save a zip file as a result of download all, which is 2.3 GB, which is, I mean, it's reasonable, right? And that helps. Heiko?
Yeah, on the topic of having all the time access to maintenance updates, all versions, I think we cannot rely on the CDN entirely, because even if these repositories never delete published RPM versions, when using the solver to install from there, you might get different results over time. Because for some combination or dependency chains, the solver might just take a different path than you had when you once tested that. Yes. I think the only reproducible way would be that you combine the RPMs that had been on the system under test, so basically your asset.
Yeah, the QCOR file, the 3 GB
exactly.
QCOR file.
And what you can then drag specifically from the CDN, because these RPMs are still around. But
yeah, like just this one package or something.
Yeah, exactly. You need to enforce these combinations of versions on your system and not test them.
Right. So that's why I'm saying those are the options that we have. The last one is, of course, most space efficient because we neither need to convince the build-ops team to prepare many more petabytes of storage, nor do we need it for us within OpenGA, but it's more elaborate.
Yeah, I think they will never agree on storing all of the different repositories, because just if you look at the kernel incident repositories, these are huge, and we have so many of them.
And the same would go for us. Like, OpenGA has the means to store repositories, but if we would do that for all of those cases, yeah, same problem.
Right.
Okay, cool. So I noted down one specific potential idea to parameterize the reproduce flag to include exact worker class combination to make it a bit more convenient. Are there other ideas that you guys want to mention that we can record those? Okay. Then I can quickly only invite you to the next meetings that we will have. Let me see. Ugh, wait, failed. Workshop topics. So thank you, Rob, for leading us to traceability and reproducibility. The next one will be in 2 weeks from now about enforcing strict warnings in OpenGA test modules, which is also should be especially interesting for OSADO test maintainers. At the beginning of August, we have the roadmap presentation in this 2-monthly cadence, and then at the end of August, an interesting discussion led by Pavel Dostal about OpenGA job group summary, or the web version of OpenGAmon showing some AI-related showcases. So yeah, thank you all, guys. Thank you, Rob. Goodbye.